Welcome to Beyond the Canvas, where we explore the profound power of art. I'm your host, Safi Uchi, an abstract expressionist who paints to heal. I'm here to share the stories of artists and creators who are using their craft to overcome challenges and inspire others. In this series, we'll go beyond the canvas, diving into the creative process, the struggles and triumphs of artists from all walks of life, and the unique ways art can heal and empower. Anna Dong is an Asian American from Seattle, Washington. In today's episode, we will talk about following your passions and creating from your heart. Welcome to Beyond the Canvas. Today, our guest, we have Anna Dong. I am so glad to have you today.
Thanks for having me.
So, how have you been?
I have been good and busy and working a lot, and also enjoying Seattle summer.
Same. It's
Trying
so
to
nice.
take advantage of the sun when it's here.
Yeah. So, you brought purses. They look so beautiful. I love them.
Thank you.
What kind of beads are these?
They're just acrylic beads that I get from this manufacturer in Florida, and they come in every conceivable color, shape, size
Yes, I
that
love
you could
it.
possibly imagine.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Beading is a process, right? It's like your concentration, and as far as art therapy goes, right? Do you take that in consideration in your process?
I think designing the bags is a bit more therapeutic than making the bags sometimes. Beads are pretty intense. Like
Yeah.
you have to be very focused and work one piece at a time. And I think there is a benefit to slowing down and being forced to focus on one element at a time, but it definitely can get frustrating.
Yeah,
But that's not to say it always is. That would be probably really bad.
yeah,
If
yeah.
I was doing that all day, and it was always frustrating. But there are moments, especially when you've dropped your 100th bead of the day or something, or you've
Right.
stepped on bead,
Right,
which I
right.
do all the time.
Oh,
But I'm kind of immune to it now. I
Yeah.
feel like it's just,
you gotten used to it now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not my house guests, because I work out of my house, but
Yeah,
I try and sweep them up.
yeah. That's good that you can find that outlet with beading and designing and having that finishing product. I know when you create the collection, when it's complete, you feel accomplished. These are new, right?
These are relatively new, yes. I would say my latest collection, well, every season I do this series called One of Ones, and it's exactly how it sounds. It's just a bunch of one-of-a-kind pieces.
Yeah.
And I think that is definitely a project that lets me be my most expressive self. Every piece is, of course, one of a kind, but also I'd say relatively unique in the jewelry world, especially
Yeah.
with beads. You can get pretty linear with things, and I definitely have, just a string of pearls or one color. But with these
Yeah.
pieces, they're using lots of different textures and colors, and I use different models, and it's always a fun and very different project every time.
That's beautiful. It's its own story. It's its own expression. It's the one of one. It's like your baby in a way.
It is.
Yeah.
You get kind of sad, or at least I do,
Yeah.
when it's over, because at a certain point you have to stop making changes or let it go, and hopefully it finds a good home
Yeah.
in a buyer. But you have created an attachment to like a very particular.
That probably
Piece.
took you about 8 hours to make.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. The simpler bags take around 5 hours, but with the patterns and different shapes and everything like that, it just adds a bunch of time.
It adds time, yeah. I'm really curious, though, because I did read over your bio, and you were in school.
I was. In undergrad, I studied biochemistry and neuroscience, and I was on a very narrow path to medical school, I'll say.
What made you transition? What was that spark for you?
It was a pretty slow transition, I'd say, but the biggest spark would be the pandemic lockdown. I was a junior at the time, and because I was already in my majors and very clear, like, I'm going to medical school, when the lockdown happened, all of our classes went remote, and really all of my time was just spent looking at a screen and being this very logical, scientific person.
Right.
So when we had the time and the platform, really, to lean into hobbies, I guess I took that opportunity.
You was like, Anna learns things now.
I was trying. I put a lot of pressure on myself just focusing on my academics.
Yeah.
So it was kind of some divine intervention, maybe. Of course, it was a very loaded time, and good and bad and crazy and unpredictable. But one thing that I guess benefited from was the time.
Yeah, COVID really put us all in like that space to figure out what are we going to do with our time. And you've always had probably this expression.
I was kind of in a serious rut for a while.
Right.
So in a weird way, COVID was kind of the best thing that happened to my art career.
Yeah.
Because I was able to rediscover that curiosity in myself that I had lost. Mm-hmm. Like it's kind of just in us. It's always been in us to be creative and curious, and I had lost a lot of that for a while. So I'd say my adversity was probably of my own doing, just not practicing what I knew was good for me.
Yeah.
And having what started as the blog, Anna Learns Things, and being able to channel very specific energy into that has helped me get out of that mindset that I pretty much put myself in.
Yeah.
Because I was so focused on school and other relationships and life.
Yeah, life, relationships, school, it could be a whole thing.
It's a whole thing and a half.
Yeah.
I found art because I was at the bottom kind of thing.
Yeah.
I felt like I just didn't have a lot. Like I didn't have very strong relationships with the people that I loved, and I only had one thing really, and it was school.
Yeah.
And during the summer I had a lot of time to reflect, and then I really just thought that I had nothing other than my potential career that I maybe wouldn't get into.
Right.
And by the time I had graduated college, I had already started applying to medical school, and as I applied, I let that application time be my gap year, and I said, I'm just going to use this to go as crazy with Anna Learns Things as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Because this is probably my last opportunity to see this through. And then I'd say by the time decisions were coming out, I had really, I guess, fallen in love with Anna Learns Things on like a very fundamental level.
Yeah.
Where I felt like I would be doing myself a disservice by not continuing.
Right. Yeah.
And then I got nervous because I was thinking of the possibility of having to leave it all to go to medical school, and then I didn't get into medical school. So then the decision was actually kind of made for me. And of course that was disappointing for a lot of reasons and invalidating for many reasons because I had worked so hard to get there. But I think also it was kind of the universe working for me because it knew that if I had gotten in, I would have gone.
Right.
And that's not the reality that I would have been happy with. Not being creative and exploring that side of myself was a problem. But it wasn't like I hadn't seen it before. I just needed something.
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of a black and white thinker. I don't guess. I know I'm a black and white thinker.
Yeah,
so it's very easy for me to kind of shunt myself down a pathway and feel kind of like lost in that. So having the chance to be creative is not something I take for granted at all, because it really brought me back to life really when I felt like I didn't have a lot. And I think that mindset definitely carries itself through my daily practice. It sounds so extreme.
Yeah, no, but it's what motivates you.
For sure.
It's the motivation, and it's like the reminder, like you said, is like going back to that time where you were low. That motivation is what drives us. Our why. Like, what is our why? Why do we keep doing what we're doing? And that's important for an artist to have that, because we can always go back and have that self-reflection to think about, that time, and that steers that inspiration, that gets you going, and when you feel like you're at that bottom again, you just take yourself right back up and, just remind yourself like, okay, like I've been here before and gonna see it through, and you find that motivation and you push through. How do you feel in this season right now, emotionally?
Emotionally, I think right now I really feel that I can look back and really see how time and taking very small steps over a long period of time pays off. I try and stop and think about what I was worried about maybe 3 years ago versus right now. And I think, and I'm like, oh, I figured that out. It's not even that big of a deal. It's not even a second thought anymore because you just kept on going.
Yeah.
But I think having that kind of anchoring message, I guess, to myself will just pick me up when I'm down.
Right.
You know?
You
and
built
then
up
just
the
keep
resilience
going,
over
for
time.
sure.
And it's just now got you into like this warrior. Like, you know, nothing can stop me now.
Hopefully.
Right.
But it's a muscle, you know?
Yeah, it is a muscle.
Picking yourself up is not easy, but it gets easier when you have proof that you've done it once and then you did it again and again and again.
Yeah, that's good. You've built an amazing product, and it's a good message that you're giving to the community and extending your hand out to help and be interested in hosting classes. And we need to express our talents and share it with the community, and that's good.
For sure. I definitely feel like we've been, I guess, blessed with this characteristic of ours, and I guess it would feel wrong if I didn't share it, and it's like overflowing out of me.
Yeah.
And I'd love to share it. It's not something I need to keep a secret or anything.
What is your, I guess, mantra behind Anna Learns Things?
I don't think I have an official mantra, but I'd say the overall message would be there are almost unlimited things that you can explore in life, and I'm kind of more of a jack of all trades, master of none. So if I can do it, you can do it. You know, like if I can make these bags, you can make these bags. If I can learn how to make jewelry or graphic design or anything like that. I'd like to think it's more of like an encouraging message of I'm just some gal.
Yeah.
If I can make this, you can too.
You're on this journey of creativity and expressing that with the bags and in just jewelry too.
Yeah, it ranges a lot. And also I have other like artistic passions, I guess, that I've been able to integrate into Anna Learns Things because that name is so broad in a sense. I can bring in different aspects of my personality through graphic design or logo illustration, not just the jewelry or the bags too.
What are you thinking of doing in the next stage with Anna? Well, you said teaching, right? Anything else other than that, like collection-wise or?
I'm definitely not just focused on the teaching. I think there are a couple different avenues that I want to explore, starting with the teaching, but then also working on my magazine project. I have this annual magazine called Current Part Magazine.
Yeah.
And for now, for the past 2 years, it's really just been kind of like a highlight reel and a low light reel too.
Yeah.
I talk about some of the issues and struggles that I've gone through. But in the future, I hope to make it a bit more collaborative. There's only so much I can say, frankly. So I would love to see what my peers have to offer in print format. I really enjoy layout graphics, so it's really a passion project for me. So I think working on the magazine too, finding more stores to work with. And I do love doing collaborations. I think it's like a great way to engage with the community in a very fun and obviously novel way.
I know that you just said that there's some things in your magazine that you've shared. What are any more struggles that you feel like you've faced?
I feel like the most frequent struggles I go through are balancing all the demands of owning a business, because that's frankly what it is at the end of the day. And that's how I pay for my life. You know, I derive so much joy from designing and making and interacting with people and all the beautiful relationships that have come out of this project. But you can only spend so much time doing that when you got to be a little more strategic, and you have to work with finances and also think about longevity. I have a very strong tendency to put pressure on myself to have everything figured out. So my day is kind of balancing my creative feelings with more reason and logic-based worries.
Do you have any specific practices to help with that balance when you do feel like that overwhelming stress of owning a business, like you said, and dealing with the back end stuff? Because it's like a tug of war. You know, you want to be creative and you want to be able to like just sit in that and be creative and express, but then you have to go and be your, you know, back end, because the business can't run without that person too. So
I am very lucky to live close to a body of water, so I try and visit that a couple times a day and disengage from technology and the job. And probably not a shocker, but I've got quite a few hobbies, so I always make time for those. And sometimes it feels wrong to leave work when there's so much to do and think about, but actually I've found that taking the time to go out with my friends or even just by myself and explore my different hobbies kind of resets my mindset. And then I can come back with a fresh set of eyes and some more energy. So it ranges a lot from physical activity to calming down as much as possible through meditative practice and talking with my loved ones, and journaling and drawing. And
I mean, what you've created and what you've built with Anna Learns Things, I mean, I would think that you had a team, like just a whole setup. I mean, the pictures are amazing.
Thank
Your
you.
quality of the bags, you can see that you put everything into it, and
Thank you.
I just applaud you. You're doing it. You know, you're doing it all by yourself. I'm just excited to see what's coming next with Anna Learns Things.
Thank you. I'm excited too. I will say a lot of that, being able to do quote unquote everything myself or be a one-person show, it's kind of a misnomer, because I get so much inspiration and knowledge and peace in working with my friends and other artists, and even building this kind of mentorship mentality with the way that I navigate the world, I guess. You can really learn something from anybody. And I've found that looking back, especially seeing kind of the more polished side of things, like the final product photos and everything like that, there were so many people that went into it in terms of like my mindset going into it. I feel like I definitely can't say that I do things alone, because people just give me so much wisdom all the time. It's incredible and overwhelming and beautiful.
Oh, that's amazing. Getting inspired by others and helping that. What is one thing that you wish that someone would have told you all along your journey in coming into being an artist?
I guess I wish someone had told me that regardless of how much you hear or are taught, you really only learn through experience. There are so many quotable, inspiring things circulating all the time, but it seems like you really don't get it until you're kind of in the trenches yourself, you know? And being an artist is such a psychological experience, not just the tangible production side of things, but your daily mindset and the way that you work through the world and make sense of things. It's so much more process-oriented than a prescribed life and career. I don't know, if I had to summarize it, it would just be patient.
Patient. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, too. Patience. Yeah. Be patient with yourself, and just know that, you know, the vision is developing, the product is developing, and it takes time, and just not to overwhelm yourself. That's the process. You know, I paint a piece and I'll go back and have to retouch it up, you know, weeks later, or I may not like the piece and I have to redo the piece. So it's all patience, it's all a process, and we're artists and we make great things, but there's that story, there's that adversity that we face, there's emotions that are being expressed in our crafts, there's all of that behind it. So for sure, I'm so glad to just hear about, you know, you and how you've transitioned between going to school and picking up art and just the completely different aspects of it, and someone out there's in your shoes, and so that's good. What does thriving look like to you as an artist?
I definitely think my definition of thriving has evolved over the past few years. The current stage of thriving that I yearn for, or that I'm experiencing from time to time, would just be knowing that stuff that I make or words that I put out bring people a little bit of joy or hope in their day-to-day life. It's something that I have experienced tabling, selling my products in person at like a pop-up or a flea market. Is that someone will pass by and their countenance will change immediately. They'll smile and say, "This reminds me of X, Y, or Z." And I think having the platform, I guess, to do that is definitely a gift and part of my overall definition of thriving. I have so much freedom in what I do, and I think knowing that I can express myself in any way that I want is a liberty that I definitely don't take for granted. At least I try not to.
You're Asian American.
Yes.
Do you use cultural symbols or motifs in your work, or are you kind of doing your own thing?
I've thought about that a lot. A pretty common feeling that I've had throughout my life is I'm neither here nor there. I'm neither Korean enough to be able to use those symbols, and I'm not American enough to ignore them. And I go back and forth between understanding the meaning and also knowing on a fundamental level they haven't been an integral part of my life as someone who's born and raised in Seattle. I think my Korean culture and experience as an Asian American woman is more of part of like the emotional side to my work, for sure. Growing up wasn't the most colorful and expressive period of my life. Even though I was very visually curious and I was always doodling and drawing and things like that, a lot of the culture that I grew up with was quietness. And I guess that informs my practice because my work is, for the most part, not very quiet. And I'm able to explore a much more loud side of me. The culture I grew up with was very complicated, I'd say. I mean, I grew up in a religious environment. I grew up with pretty strict rules around me about what was expected of me, and I think that definitely played into the loss of my practice for many years because I was so focused on fulfilling expectations of being a very financially successful doctor, which is, of course, a path that I have, for all intents and purposes, abandoned. Because I knew it wasn't right for me. And so now that I'm kind of in the aftermath of that decision, it's more putting everything I've got into Anna Learns Things because I gotta make it work. So I think it's funny because I internally get nervous or anxious about being too much, just taking over, being too loud or assertive or colorful or whatever, just too much. But also there's this kind of, I guess, cloud over me that's like, you've got to be too much.
Right.
Because you chose this. There's definitely a lot of layers to it.
I can read all between the lines.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to it.
You're not confining yourself to what you've seen growing up, how you lived growing up, and the colors just even symbolize a brighter future, a brighter way to express what you've endured and what maybe American, Asian American art looks like. And this is just you tapping into this new generation of your expression, and I think that is amazing.
Thank you for saying that. I think knowing what the generations of women before me have gone through, knowing that I have the freedom to, in essence, do whatever I want with my art is so many things for me. It's amazing and beautiful and empowering and also really scary because it acts as kind of like a pressure to be the most and the best.
Right. Yeah, I'm Native American. I grew up on the reservation, and a lot of my family, we do, Coast Salish work. We carve totem poles, and we do the traditional style of work. And I keep those motifs throughout my work, but I'm very expressive with the paint. Like, I don't confine myself like that either. I just try to be expressive in the way that I feel, but also still keeping some of that traditional aspect to it, but just really being who I want to be and how I want to express myself. Because at the end of the day, my story doesn't change. Who I am doesn't change. My background, my heritage doesn't change. And if my art looks the way it looks, to me, that's fine. I enjoy it and others enjoy it. And I think that is where we can resonate with each other. We're multicultural women, and this is who we are.
I think this experience lends itself to the whole authenticity conversation. It's such a malleable word. Everyone interprets it and defines it and uses it so differently, but I think authenticity is exactly what you were saying. Just your story's not going to change. I think that's a great way to look at things. I don't tell myself that enough. I need to.
People that love you. They love you for you. They love you for who you are, and your product, of course. But, it's the beauty of art. It's the beauty of art.
It is.
Where can people find you?
You can follow Anna Learns Things on Instagram. It's just at Anna Learns Things. And my web shop is updated, and it's annalearnsthings.com.
Nice.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for tuning in to Beyond the Canvas. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to catch more, please like and subscribe. Thank you.